And thanks for staying with us on your channel of choice, Africa Independent Television AIT. Welcome to the Signature Show. My name is Mwabu Zenjok. And in this edition of the program this Sunday, Anambra governorship election. Is it the beginning of the Third World War or a civic process? Northern Group heads to the court, wants the judiciary to compel the National Assembly to force the Igbo out of Nigeria. Plus, our interview, is the artist a minstrel without a mission? And of course, you cannot miss our corruption theory and our thank you series. All you do is just stay with us and you enjoy the package. Now, in the next 6 days, the people of Anambra State head to the polls to elect their next governor. Prayer warriors, later-day Nostradamuses, and even graveyard sorcerers are fasting, divining, casting spells, and foretelling that all contrary spirits and naysayers and soldiers of Beelzebub intent on scuttling the elections will end like demented swine in the bottom of Anambra River. Can somebody shout a loud amen? But please wait. The Nigerian police is not impressed by the appeal to the elementals, whether Ariel or even the god on the Olympus. The police authorities are convinced that the Third World War will be declared in Anambra State on November the 6th. And to show their conviction, the police have activated a force enough to put into disarray the entire Spanish Armada. Check it out. For the Anambra election, the police have 2 DIGs, 5 AIGs, 14 commissioners of police, 31 deputy commissioners of police, 48 assistant commissioners of police, and 34,587 other ranks armed to the teeth and with the latest support equipment and sniffer dogs. All these are deployed because of a civic duty called democratic election, a process which is supposed to be a free choice. Choice obtained under such harsh force. Can it be free? But those who bring home ant-infested wood must take responsibility for the unending presence of lizards. IPOB should count their teeth with their tongue because there'll be a blame game. The Anambra governorship election is the subject of our special opinion this Sunday. President Muhammadu Buhari last Monday traveled out of Nigeria to take part in an investment summit and perform the religious rite of Lesser Hajj in Saudi Arabia. President Muhammadu Buhari left behind a major test of his capacity for political engineering and craftsmanship, the upcoming Anambra governorship election. The odds are stacked against a successful conduct of the election. The indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, has issued a 1-week sit-at-home order in the southeast against all reasonable admonitions and persuasions that the move is a clear case of cutting his nose to spite his face. The order, which takes effect from November 4, 2021, has caused a run on the Independent National Electoral Commission, which has made arrangements for the polls. The ad hoc staff of the commission recruited and trained for the polls have reportedly resigned en masse. The staff resigned for fear of their safety because IPOB has deployed force and threat to life to extract compliance to the orders on previous occasions. The Ohaneze Ndibo, the Igbo socio-cultural group, has attempted to wade into the crisis opposing the IPOB sit-at-home order. Ohaneze's objection seems to be achieving as much as the feeble and uncoordinated voices of the Southeast political leaders. IPOB counts their positions as inconsequential, if not a betrayal. The position of IPOB seems to draw from experience, as the sense of seeming alienation in the Southeast world and IPOB canvassed for a more equitable treatment of the Igbo nation within the Nigerian state. The Nigerian state responded angrily and disdainfully, putting in place military python dances that allegedly claimed the lives of many Igbo youth. The contribution of Igbo political leaders to resolve the ensuing crisis was to distance themselves from IPOB, cast out its leadership, and seek individual political benefits from the federal authorities. This puts them at odds with IPOB and has created a confidence gulf and credibility question to whatever they say in the present situation. The Igbo nation is now in quandary. That quandary is the hard place on which the Anambra election is about to fall. The question is, who will call IPOB to order? There is a conspiracy theory which says that it is in fact state actors who do not want the Anambra election to go well or even hold at all. The purveyors of this theory insist that the violence in the run-up to the election, which was the first major challenge to a successful conduct of the polls, was in fact orchestrated by the Nigerian state. The argument is that a failed Anambra governorship election will allow the federal government to declare a state of emergency, which will effectively hand the state over to non-Anambra interests. This theory also holds non-Anambra interests responsible for the last-minute legal maneuvering seeking to disqualify over 4 governorship candidates in the election. Just last Monday, one Ifeanyi Okonkwo headed to the Awka Federal High Court seeking to disqualify 4 political parties from participating in the November 6 election. Before he left for Saudi Arabia, President Muhammadu Buhari had given marching orders to the security agencies to go tough with anybody or group seeking or working to scuttle the Anambra election. That is a security threat response. However, a number of Igbo leaders seem to be finding their voices to tell the federal government that the unraveling situation in the southeast is a political matter which requires political solution. The IPOB is only the face of deep-seated discontent over how the affairs of the nation is being run. The Anambra election will therefore be a litmus test on how well the federal authorities understand, appreciate, and show a capacity and willingness to resolve the political discontent. If the election fails, then President Muhammadu Buhari would have failed and his democratic credentials shredded. If it succeeds by claiming lives through the deployment of force, again, the democratic man in the president would have been killed. In this circumstance, President Muhammadu Buhari must seek a conversation with Igbo leaders to diffuse the tension and let the election hold. That conversation should address the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu and the way forward. Time is of essence. You are watching the Signature Show on AIT. Some members of a Northern coalition decided last week to become the outsider who weeps more than the bereaved. The group on Monday headed to the Federal High Court in Abuja seeking judicial intervention in the ongoing constitutional amendment. And what do they want? Their representatives Nastura Ashir Sharif, Balarabe Rafal, Abdulaziz Suleiman, and Aminu Adam are asking the court to compel the National Assembly to hasten the exit of the Southeast from their country, Nigeria. And they are telling the court that their reason for approaching the court is to contain the violence and destruction occasioned by the agitation by the indigenous peoples of Biafra IPOB for self-determination, which could lead to another civil war. But please wait. Let us look at the ruling of His Honor, Justice Ladiran Akitola of the Oyo State High Court in the case of Sunday Igboho versus the federal government and others over the invasion of his house because of his agitation and, of course, with other people for a separate Yoruba nation. Justice Ladiran Akitola ruled, and I quote, "With the combined provisions of international and domestic laws, Nigerians, including Sunday Igboho, have the unquestionable and inalienable fundamental right to campaign and agitate for self-determination."
Is there anything more to add to this? However, I must state that I'm a firm believer in one indivisible Nigeria with a federation, but that can be negotiated for fairness, equity, and justice, and accountable development. And now to our special interview for this week, which is a feast of poetry, and raises the question of if artist can be a minstrel without a mission. And my guest is Deji Ige. Stay with us. A poet, a philosopher, you're welcome to the conversation.
Good.
Deji, how did you chance at poetry? Did you elect to do it? Did you study it? How did you come at poetry?
Okay. I never studied it. I wouldn't say I stumbled on it, because I knew there was something within me. I knew I had the gift of word crafting. But how to bring that to reality, I did not know. So, the manifestation of my ability to do word crafting, I would say I stumbled upon. I wrote a few things, and people said, wow, this sounds good. And at some point, I realized I had too many words within me that should go on paper. So I started putting my words on paper. I continued living my life. Then at some point, I started writing short stories. I just knew I had those words, and people would say, oh my God, the way you constructed your stories. So I started putting those short stories down. Then one fateful day, I wrote a poem. It was when the previous Ooni of Ife, Oba Okwandeshijuade, died. And we heard the story of Abobaku. Abobaku means the man that must die with the king. Abobaku escaped. He did not want to die with the king. So he ran away. That was so funny to me, because Abobaku, while the king, anytime the king is alive, Abobaku is like a king, well revered. He eats what the king eats. He's so respected and is in affluence. So the king died, and he was meant to die with the king, to accompany the king to the afterlife. This is the tradition in Ile-Ife. So Abobaku ran away. So they kept looking for him. I don't know if they found him till date. So that was so funny to me, and that brought words like, so I wrote Stench of Tradition. Because the opening line is Oba Oshupa on his way to the ancestors. Abobaku spotted at Semeboda, the ancient town. So that was the first poem, major poem I wrote. What that poem is pointing out is this part of our tradition still stinks. Believe me, the man may have enjoyed, but in this 21st century, should a man be killed to escort another man to the afterlife?
Should a man anyway also accept to profit from likely death, and when death comes, he absconds?
Everyone is guilty. The man who accepted, the man who bestowed it upon him, and the one who is ready to kill him. Everybody. So it wasn't about castigating the people looking for Abobaku to kill, castigating Abobaku himself. Why would you? So anyway, long story short, and when this poem was ready, and this is another turning point in my life that led me to performance poetry. You know, there's page poetry, there's performance poetry, there's spoken word. I do both. I do page poetry, I do performance poetry, then I do spoken word as well. So I performed a Stench of Tradition on stage for the first time, and everyone was blown away.
There is this argument about art for the sake of art, and not art as a problem-solving experience. Art not necessarily addressing social problems. For a Nigerian society where there's mass neglect, where there's what I'm mature this afternoon to call mass infertility, is art for the sake of art, not mere masturbation. since society is seeking reproductive consequence?
So what I'm going to say is, first and foremost, art should be left to thrive in whatever form. And this is where you can get the best of art. Those who want to use art to address societal challenges, to attack societal ills, to speak truth to power, please let them do. And those who want to use art as a form of escape, first to clear their head, even if they are ranting, but once they are producing something tangible that can be called art, then I wouldn't call that a waste. Remember, some people feed on art. Some produce art. Some feed on art. The producers may be producing in vain in their own thinking. I'm just ranting. I'm so sick and tired of this life. I'm just writing. But the next man feeding on that may be taking it as medicine. Remember, it may not happen in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It may be in 10 years. Once that work is called art, it will fulfill the purpose of art. And art doesn't have a single purpose. It has purposes. Means of entertainment, of education, information, even mass action, affirmative action. So eventually, I do not see, there's nothing called wasted art. There's no art for the sake of masturbation. Once the semen that I spilled is picked by an egg and fertilized in whatever form, let art thrive. That's all I'll say.
Deji, you know why I use that figurative expression? It's because I used mass infertility.
Yes.
Nigeria is at the crossroads. And time and again, the issue has been raised, where are the thinking minds? What are the men who could lace words together to speak to Nigeria's ignorance, to speak to Nigeria's waywardness, to speak to Nigeria's underperformance, to remind men that they ought to be men, and to remind people of material that life is not all material. After all, in this country, there was an Aminu Kano. I said to you out of stage that there was an Aminu Kano who bestrode Nigerian politics. By the time he exited, he had no house. That there was Dr. Michael Okpara, a medical doctor, who was premier of Eastern Nigeria. By the time he returned from exile in Ireland, he had no house. There was a Solomon Lar, who in my presence, Joshua Dariye, demolished his mud house to give him a place to put his head. There was a Sadana of Sokoto who was larger than life. By the time he was killed, he had only £6 in his account. That these are values that are running away from Nigeria. And the artists and the intellectual are busy entertaining. That's why I said, is it necessary to be involved in masturbation when there is mass barrenness?
I agree to what you've said to an extent, but I'll share my opinion on that. As long as we do not have a society totally void of intellectuals, then we still have something to hold on to. Believe me, at every point in human civilization, in human liberation, in human existence, there will be mere entertainers. There will be intellectuals. So eventually, there will be ideological people who would change ideology of other people. So eventually, everyone has their role. Those who do art for the sake of entertainment, it's fine. But the question we should be asking is the voice of those who use art to pass a message louder than the voice of those who use art as a mere form of entertainment. Maybe we should reverse it in this form. We should find a way to increase the volume for those who are using art to teach, to change. This is all I can say. But remember, a society still needs those who use art to entertain.
Today, the drums of division are so loud in Nigeria. The drums of mass murder are so loud in Nigeria. The drums of impunity are so loud in Nigeria. And the current worry is that the drums of to thy tents, O Israel, which if not well managed, could become the drums of war, that they are so loud. Is there any lesson in history that by your art and your poetry that we could draw from to warn us against this centripetal forces pulling and asking us to please everybody move in your direction? Is there any lesson in history?
There is, believe me. There will always be lessons in history. First, I think there's a Yoruba proverb that says, "Baba mobi anlo, amobi atimbo." If we do not know where we're going, we should know where we're coming from. And sometimes, to find your path into the future, you have to retrace your steps into the past. That can tell, oh, okay, I think I started out to get here. Okay, fine, let me stay on course. So eventually there are lessons, and I teach, I remind people of those lessons through my works.
Is there any of your works that can speak to the dangers of the present drums to Nigerians?
Yeah, there is. Okay, I'll do this poem titled "If the Weapon is Fired." It says a lot about the Nigerian Civil War and the memory of those who lost their lives and lost loved ones. Anyway, the sun rises again in the east, and I hear the same old chant, the chant of Exodus. To bring this chant to heal, I shall say a word of revelation. And before we flip the future into apocalypse, sing a song of lamentation to soothe the memory of Ikenna, that innocent boy, plucked off his mother's back, then dressed in military uniform twice his father's size and oversized boots he barely walked in. Before a bullet went through his head in the camp of child soldiers, where children were molded into weapons, branded freedom fighters, then forced to worship drugs in a rebellion they couldn't spell its intention. Let the morning dew of reason perch on restive spirits of those who have made even a whim into a prayer. May the sun not go down on your anger, for good fortune to continue to water that fertile land on which the sun rises in salute of hard work and harvest never cease. So we do not have to seek the peacemakers once again to quench the wildfire of rebellion. If a child never saw the horror of war, his father saw the night before, which now keeps the old man in his bed while the young and restless chant to the sound of Egbe. Let the father tell the legend of Ntijebe. The battle that ended before it began broke 1,000 guns, the spirit of a clan and the pride of men. Let men tell the legend of Ntijebe, so women can imagine losing a child. Let the mothers weave a fabric in love to veil hatred from the heart of their children, lest their sons be sent to war and daughters ravaged in rebellion. May it be burnt to ashes. The roller coaster of hatred will ride to the past to invoke the forgotten rage of Ogbunigwe. Let men of understanding run this race before it is too late. At the 9th mile, Find Ugochinyelu, my mother. Ask for wisdom. Tell her, I have been to the other side and back, seen the intangibility of life from the vantage point of reconciliation and the needless point of rebellion. And like she said, even the star of the north cannot take the glory of sunrise in the east. But the sun that rises in the east must set in the west. So, in isolation, melody cannot be heard. But when the woodpeckers beat the drum and the crickets sing a song, the music comes together. Together, we must forbid the ghost of yesterday from haunting tomorrow. So, at sunrise, I shall head to Asaba to mourn the massacre that left eternal scars, and go to Obosi to rule the memory of the battle that turned water to blood. I shall kiss 1,000 graves of those who paid with their lives, plead with their soul. Bikono, forgive the past. Bikono, eternal peace upon your spirit. I will speak to the land on which Bosi's fortune was told, and the hope of Ikemba's war dashed. Jewel said, so we do not tell your story twice. Jewel said, at sundown, ask to be told a tale of fortune and a tale of doom. So you can tell the difference between hide and seek on green fields where butterflies caresses the cheeks, or the hide and seek on battlefields littered with corpses of family and friends. And for the ray of hope of a brighter tomorrow, not to be dimmed by hunger and disease as echoes of peace seen into another mournful chapter in history. Ifa Juna must not rest. Banjo must not sleep. Let the war heroes from great beyond whisper the lessons of their war through whispers of reason to those who were absent, and the young and restless, peeping into the barrel of loaded gun. If the weapon is fired, a fairy tale will not be told, and the generation unborn may yet bear the brunt.
Well, Deji, you are speaking to an angry people. You are speaking to a reactionary people. You are speaking to a situation, in fact, that could have a dire consequence. This, your poem, seems to agree with the lecture delivered in Washington in 2016 by a former governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Charles Soludo, at the World Igbo Day, in which he made a prediction that unless something was done to the Nnamdi Kanu factor, the Southeast and Nigeria could be facing a situation that could become unpleasant. But he also raised a question. He asked, where were the intellectuals? What was the debate like? Where are they to contribute to synthesizing of thoughts in such a manner that the table and conversation could solve a problem instead of the guns about which you've warned? But, Deji, I'm also to ask a question. Yes, the man who is beating the drum of war and the youth, ignorant youth, who is anxious to put his hands on the trigger and fire the first shot, may be a fool. But how more foolish is the person, or isn't the person, who is stoking the reason for this reaction? For indeed, they say for every action, there's an equal reaction. And a child cannot start crying when there are no hands beating it. So what do you say? Do you have any piece of work that can speak to these slapping hands, the inequity and the inequality they are complaining about? The convoluted federation they are complaining about? The refusal to accept intellect as necessary yardstick for running national affairs? Where is the competence and where is the skill?
We need to constantly remind ourselves, especially the generation raising the dust, that there was a time we were a nation, we were a brother's keeper, and the time can come back. Those days can be brought back, but only by us. So this will lead me to this poem, Where Are Those Days?
Just before you come into Where Are Those Days, Dechi, there are people whose only value today is putting their hands on the chest. In fact, what they consider the dead man's chest filled with gold, and they eat Nigeria up with reckless abandon, warranting people of doubtful integrity who have eaten from those chests to become governors, yes, to become senators, yes, to become men to be considered in society, to the point that what this conversation you and I had this afternoon, they say, look, these are the rantings of people who cannot make it. And making it means eating off the national resource, the opportunities, the monies, the friendship, the familial relationships, and it pays them. Can you talk to them now?
So eventually, the generation of those who feed off the flesh of the people will soon leave, believe me. Writers are called prophets. Poets are called prophets. Sometimes when the writers get their words, or where they get their words, I would call it a spiritual realm. That is why today Bob Marley's words are still relevant. Fela's words are still relevant. They will still be relevant into the future. So what I'm saying is, those people will leave. Believe me. Whoever keeps his hand on the treasure chest of the people and looting it dry, at some point will take there. If you don't take it off willingly, death will help you take it off. But a generation must be prepared to take charge when those are gone. And this is the generation someone like me would speak to. I've lost those who are keeping their body on the treasure chest. Let them be. But we need to prepare the generation to come and take over, to be mentally ready, to be ideologically ready, politically ready to do the right thing. So hence, where are those days? Can I verily bury this memory? Can I ever not rule over the days of glory? I think they are gone. Noble ways of good old days in this land, I guess, disappeared with the granite pyramids of Kano. The acid rain that withered fertile fields of brotherhood in Jos also killed compassion in the neighborhood of Lagos. Rails were built to connect cities and heart of folks who lived apart, I was told. Children who had little to eat would await travelers in Kaduna with open arms and offerings of tuwo masara, which they shared in elation to strangers from Owerri and Warri, weary and hungry, on their journey to foreign lands they later called home. In search of where it all began, I groped in the darkness of days at hand. My foresight went hazy, so I stumbled on my father's broken heart, broken by stumbling blocks of unpaid pension and bonds inflicted by compatriots who made him queue in the sun to earn the peanut called pension. My father screamed as the pain grew sharper when the politicians mentioned this paid pension as an achievement of their government. So, for my hazy vision and the inadequate attention of my generation to the state of the nation, not asking the aging generation the direction to our destination, my father gave me punishment to write an epistle on how it all began. His opening line threw me off balance. What does not belong to a man, he said, a man should not take, except a woman in marriage. If not that option, then it is corruption. Life is a riddle, my son. The land bled when Ovorawen was put in shackles. Heaven wept when Saruwiwa was laid to rest. Rest was his last word. That sparked this unrest within me, that heroes of noble cause who have gone to rest may never rest in peace until this matter is laid to rest. My father fell asleep, so I picked his brain. So one day, I can pick my pen to write an epistle on how his generation fell asleep. The watchmen slipped into coma. Then, courage gave way to hypocrisy. Weakness mistaken for meekness. The warriors are in shackles of comfort. The just gagged with wealth. The lions shed their mane, watching chameleons take over the jungle as our conscience inches towards extinction. One day, I will write an epistle on how it all began and begin the epistle with a question. How did we get here? How did we assemble this orchestra afflicted with musical myopia? However, did we climb this height of impunity from where we overlook the fact that we goaded ourselves into this labyrinth in which we have lost the path to utopia and found a cemetery of regrets to bury the relics of our days of glory? So I ask, where are the days of glory? Where are those days nothing went to waste? We made tangible things from things of little worth, like tins of milk recycled to containers for moi moi, and the big ones we used for storing detergents. Our leftover went to the cage of rabbits beside the vegetable garden, kept green by dung from the poultry farm that assured us eggs with our daily bread. How did we arrive at this creek of emptiness, where we bleed our land for fortune, spill oil on the future, burrow the earth for wealth, bury our inspiration within? Oil may fuel cars, I know, but inspiration will fuel those who will build cars. As imitation of one generation by another will determine the exaltation of a nation or her limitation from generation to generation. And this is not a legend. Inspiration is not a legend. Like those days were real. When empty cartons were remolded into space shuttles and exotic cars that carried our children to the land of their dreams on the shoulders of fathers who washed sweat of labor off their hands rather than blood of kindred, and mothers who needed not stay awake at night twisting and turning figures on public ledger. Where are those days? Daughters were proud of fathers who were soldiers, and sons aspired to be soldiers. I'm afraid generals now handle cash than guns, and I've seen colonels amass wealth better than living up to their rank on the battlefield. Where are those days our national anthem was a prayer? Each verse crafted the master key that unlocked doors in days of uncertainty. Virtue flowed in our veins. Love expressed in purest ways, as bars of iron could not cage our dignity. Praise be the name of the Lord. Have mercy on your people. Just before the shepherds started to hustle flock with fancy billboards and the scriptures shrank into apps on the same tabs where we watch porn, were the days our offering went straight from the heart to the offering bowls on sacred altars, then carried further to orphans and widows and accounted for by church elders. I'm afraid on this new road to salvation, I see end-time ministries where offerings are swiped from debit cards to POS on glamorous altars, wired to holy accounts, and further to escrow for the offspring of the shepherd. Worse still, lavished on building colleges and private jets the congregation cannot afford. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Al-Amin. Astaghfirullah. As I long for those days to be back when peace was not haram, but what we made with our neighbors no matter their religion. Salat was a sure path to Al-Jannah. We would never kneel on sajada covered in blood.
Deji, I want to read you. Deji, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. I want us to end this conversation this afternoon by facing certain realities. You're a young man. You've elected thought as your own weapon of engagement in a Nigerian society that seems to be looking for ways of salvation. I interjected at this point of prayer to also add my voice and say, may those to whom you are speaking hear and hearken. Well, again, thank you, Deji Ige, for being my guest. But the story of high life music on the West Coast cannot be told without capturing the exploits of the evil genius of high life, the man who began with the bombardine and the French horn at the age of 12 and graduated to the mastery of the trumpet. His name, Victor Abimbola Olaiya. Born in Calabar, Cross River State, to Yoruba parents from Ekiti State, Victor Olaiya sprouted into high life, grew in it, and matured and became its master. In the course of over 65 years, Victor Olaiya went through the musical meals of Samak Babod Band, Lagos City Orchestra, and Bobby Benson, to then form the Cool Cats, which became the All-Stars High Life Band. Victor Olaiya's works remain evergreen, for which many of us, many Nigerians, derive pleasure and happiness and enjoy their lives. How else can we remember Dr. Victor Abimbola Olaiya, OAN, this Sunday, than to say thank you for bringing high life and making us a happy people.
Mi sọ fún sísí yẹn kó má ì lọ o. Mo ti sọ wípé fàájì tẹ́lẹ̀ lájọ wà. Àní ẹ bá mi sọ fún sísí yẹn kó má ì sá lọ. Mo ti sọ wípé tẹ́lẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀ là wà. Àjọ wà kan náà ni. Àǹtí jọ̀wọ́ kó má ì lọ o. Ọmọdé ń ṣe mí. Sisi mi dá àníṣe sisi jọ̀wọ́ kò gbé mi ṣàyà àní bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ni kò wá fún mi lọ́yàn dúdú mu. Ọmọdé ń ṣe mí tìyá mi dá tìyá jọ̀wọ́ kò má ì lọ o. Ebi ń pa mi mo fẹ́ mu yàn. Fún mi lọ́yàn dúdú mu. Ọmọdé ń ṣe mí sísí mi dá àǹtí jọ̀wọ́ kó má ì lọ o. Dúró dè mí kó gbé mi ṣàyà díà kó wá fún mi lọ́yàn dúdú mu. Ọmọdé ń ṣe mí sísí mi dá sísí jọ̀wọ́ kó má ì lọ o. Àníṣe dúró dè mí kó gbé mi ṣàyà bí ò bá lè gbé mi pa kó wá fún mi lọ́yàn dúdú mu. mi dá. Ìyá jọ̀wọ́ kó gbé mi sáyà. Kó wá fún mi lọ́yàn tútù mu.
Well, that draws the curtain on this edition of the Signature Show, but please stay with us for Corruption Story, which follows immediately. My name is Mwabu Zenjok. Good afternoon.
My people, una welcome to Corruption Story for this Sunday. My people dey talk say as pikin reach im papa die, na him go begin dey take charge from where the papa stop. You see, my sister Ufuoma Eguria say no fit come today. Na him I come standa gidigba as oga of Corruption Story for today. My name na Marvelous Obommanu. Abeg, standa with us.
This na Corruption Story.
Last 2 weeks, Corruption Story waka go Achi in Oji River local government area of Enugu State. If say you watch Signature Show last week, you go see say we bring you small documentary for Oyibo. But this Sunday, we go bring you the corruption story as the people take talk am for their own mouth. The first thing be say, how come this corruption matter dey waka dey enter everywhere? And wetin dey kukuma cause amsef?
Ihe ọ dị m ka a ga-eme ka bribe a kwụsịwụ. Ọ bụrụ na anyị na-ejikọ aka ọnụ dịka esi ekwu ebe a since it starts with us, anyị nwa individually. Ọ bụrụ na ofu onye dịka ihe okwu polisi na-aga bribe, driver sị na ọ naghị enye, ndị nọ na moto support ọ driver. Afọ m ka onye polisi ahụ ga-stand the multitude nọ na the moto. So ọ dị m ka anyị niile jikọ mmadụ kwuo eziokwu, support eziokwu okwu. Anyị blame on ahụ. Corruption aga survive in our society.
Also, ndị polisi na-eri ana adịla erikwu bịara kapịnta ndị ọzọ niile n'ụzọ onye ọnwụla nsi eri na o nwere ka enye 100,000 gụnye mmadụ nyechi anyị ya ọ bribe. Ọkwa eziokwu ka mgbe a na-eme covid ebe n'ebe egburu evute akpara ise evute ihe niile ndị na-eke a ga-enye half vuru nke ọzọ vugbuo n'ụlọ benozo ha ya niile bụ mmadụ ninja onye ọbụla donate but na onweghị nke emere approve so na ihe na-eme anyị isi anyị n'aka.
Some drivers na-aga n'ụzọ ha nweji particulars or driving license. Onye ji driving license mgbe onye bribe ka o wee hapịa mana ijide driving license or particulars moto enyewi ha lawu the particulars or driving license inye ha ha fụrụ akwụ zuru ezu ha sị nwe ha bribe isi ha na ime ha bribe.
Bribe na-ekwu sọ ndị polisi anyị na-okwe lọka na-eri bribe ije para akpa akwụ mmadụ para akpa akwụ ahụ ọchụgudo kama nyara enye bi 500 ịlatawụkwa bribe.
Mana anọgo na moto ebe onye polisi ga-apụta ikekwa driver ama ekwenye ya bribe ọ paaki ya unu niile anọrọ ebe a ndị na-aga ndị nye bribe a na-aga ọ paaki ya unu ebe a unu duredi ịnọ 5 hours 6 hours ndị passenger evukwu anaghị driver ọsọ 50 naira ọsọ 20 naira ị ga-enye ya ka ị ga-eji wee bịa paakị ya ebe a.
Esigo m Ọnịcha na-alata one day eji because of bribe ka driver kwụọ nye 15 naira. Driver si n'ụzọ ọzọ na-akọ n'otu a gbafee n'ike, ndị polisi were egbe gbawa taya driver, moto a ga-ada. Nne ma nna ma nwa nọ n'ime moto ha ncha nwụcha. So ebido blame nwa driver, ọ na ọ kwụrụ 15 naira na agaghị agba ya. So ụjọ ga na-atụrụ ndị driver ma ha kwụrụ agbawa taya ha, kedu ebe ha ga-esi ga zụta ego ha ga-eji zụta ọzọ.
Everybody dey fear and they no wan talk wetin dey make them fear like that. Na true say people no wan die o, and some people sef dey benefit from corruption. But wetin we go do try stop this corruption? Because if we no cool corruption, my brother, my sister, corruption go kill us o.
Ihe metiela okwu onye ikpeazụ kwuru okwu ihe mmemme anyị isi anyị n'aka a na-ere ahụ ochi anyị n'aka o kpochikwa ka ochi ahụ aka anyị mee nnụ kwụsị ha mmadụ ka o si eri osi ebe ahụ kwụsị. Nke mbụ gbasara ihe polisi, anyị bụ ndụ na nnọkọ ala eje emeteka ndị polisi enyi anyị ma-emeta ha ahụ ihe ọjọọ. Onwe nwa mpụrụ aghụghọ nke m mkpakọlọtara ala agbarụkọ ahụ onye ahụ m metere enyi polisi obido jọba m ozugbo ala ekwukwere ihe mmedo njọ onye nwa alọgidera m mebara mma. Number 1 nke ọzọ m esotekwe ihe onye nke na-esote onye ikpeazụ m kwuru enwee ndidi. Ọ bụrụ na mmadụ niile lọrọ kwukọta okwu si onye a mere ihe njọ chikwurula o mere njọ, onye a nwere ike ọlọọlọ nwanne ma ọlọọlọ ikwu ma ọlọọlọ ibi ole emebi ihe gụwa akwụ adụmadịleri kwụrụ ile azụ ma onye emeghị nwe ihe o mere ala atụ ya ahụhụ. Bribery and corruption ha jukwara eju. Ọ kwasa ọsọ nke ndị drivers mmemme ma anyị onwe anyị nọ n'ime ụlọ ịhụ ihe m mere kama ihe ekwuru ihe merere ị gakwere elala chigbugakwa onye a chigbuo ole o mere wa ile o meghe ama m egwula atụ anyị enweghị m ike ịkọ mana onye m esogara n'okwu o kwuru onye nọọtụ ahụ kwuru okwu wee sị isi nsekpu nji ihe ahụ niile bụ ekpere ọsọsọ Chineke na-agwọ ya agwụ ihe mkpatara ọya maka ihe bụ nnukwute ọya dọrọ mmadụ niile.
Anyị nwere ada enwe afọ ojuju n'ihe anyị nwere one anyị nwere maka na ndị polisi a dị na-akwụ ha ụgwọ. Ọpọ na gọọmenti na-akwụ ha ụgwọ ha edesa nke ahụ gọọmenti na-akwụ ha na-achọkwa nke ha ga-anara mmadụ n'aka ibe. Ọ bụrụ na anyị akwụsị ha ịma na gọọmenti ga-ewepụta ntaramahụhụ a ga-ana onye nara.
What I know be say is prayer is master key. All of us, we are Muslim and our brothers Christian, let us put good prayer in the night for our leaders in Nigeria. Let God pursue the bad leaders for us and let God bring good leaders for us.
Mu taimaka ma kanmu da zuciyarmu mu sacrifice mind namu mu mai kashi ga Allah ko mu taimaka ma kanmu ko an ce mu ba da cin hanci da rashawa sai mu hana. Ko an ce mu ba da cin hanci da rashawa sai mu hana. Ko ba ga bane idan muka hana babu ne faru da mu. Iyaka ne akan mu gaba. An kai mu gaba kuma gwamnati za su duba mu.
Thank them for waking us up. They are waking us up. If you think say you don't wake up, somebody then they chop waiting day between you and them. You dey sleep? Not sleep, you dey sleep. So we want to thank them for waking us up. But you know go complete if after today, like one traditional leader said, after today we go, you go remain. No. If we don't wake up, we don't wake up. It go be good. Make as we dey comot, as tomorrow they come, as this evening they come, as we dey go, they go. We begin to put to practice what we dey learn today. So it is not enough to come clap and say yes. We must put this thing to action.
It's a corruption theory.
My people, they say, talk, na do. The corruption tori for Achi in Oji River local government area of Enugu State show say true talk na do, as the people don agree say dem no go gree for corruption. Very soon corruption go wear cloth run disappear for our country. My people, na here we go end corruption tori for this Sunday. My name na Marvelous Obommanu. Until next time, abeg country people, make una help us dey kill corruption anywhere wey una see am before e go kukuma kill us. Una bye bye yo.